slide up. Hi guys, I'm Katie Phillips. I founded the School of Self-Love, and it's my absolute honor to be here with you with a training called How to Unapologetically Love Yourself. I have an hour for this training. I absolutely love doing Q&A, and if we have time at the end, we will. This is going to be a solid 1 hour training. So Q&A probably will take us a little bit over the hour, but if you do have any burning questions for me during this, pop them in the chat. I can't see the chat as I'm going through the webinar, but at the end of the training, I will check the chat, and I will do my best to answer your questions for as long as we're allowed to stay on live. Okay, so welcome here. I trust you have arrived with a pen and paper. You're going to need it. And there'll be a few little exercises as we go through. If you're watching this on replay, you might just want to pause whenever we get to an exercise point so you can just take your time and not feel at all rushed. But yeah, like I said, it's my absolute pleasure to be here with you. So we're going to be looking at, so Self-Love 101 is essentially what we're diving into. And in terms of loving yourself unapologetically, I'm super practical about this. I'm very fierce about what self-love is, and I think it requires a lot of practical action taking on a regular basis. And it is a practice. Like, self-love isn't something we just get or arrive at. It's a daily piece that we have to sort of embody and bring into our everyday lives. So let me tell you a little bit about me first. I told you my name. I am an author, actually. Here we go. Let's copy my book. Available on Amazon, The Self-Love Affair, A Woman's Guide to a Daring and Mighty Life. I am a women's empowerment master coach. I'm a love and dating mentor. I'm a divine masculine feminine embodiment guide. Don't be freaked out by that. I'm a speaker. I spoke on the Google London TEDx stage a few years ago. And I love nothing more than hosting and speaking at women's wellbeing events. It really is my absolute happy place. It's such a pleasure to be here with you guys. I created something called the Meet Your Soulmate 5-day challenge. It's a 5-day completely free experience for single women. So if you happen to be single, maybe I'll pop the link in the chat. We actually have our next free challenge coming up on the 14th of June. So that's on Monday coming. So you might want to check that out. I'm also a funeral celebrant, kind of an unusual piece, but something that I'm very passionate about. I'm all about kind of celebrating lives. So living or dead, I'm all about celebrating life. I'm married to my husband, James. We were married coming on 3 years ago. So I was a single mama for 8 years before I met him. And it's all part of my story and my journey to why I do what I do now with single women specifically, but we're very happily married. He's a super empowered man. We have 3 children between us, and I hope you can tell by my accent, I'm Australian, but I've been living in the UK for 20 years now. Okay, so this is a little bit about me. We teach what we need to learn. You may have heard that before. So super quick background on why I do what I do. That says 10 years ago. It's actually 12 years ago. I was on my accelerated personal development and spiritual awakening journey. Back then, I kind of had a bit of a rock bottom moment. I might share a little bit about that with you in a moment. It essentially, it woke me up. I was in a corporate career and I loved my corporate work and I had a really great life. And I was utterly disconnected from the truth of who I was. I suffered a lot of anxiety and a little bit of depression behind the scenes. No one knew. I just kind of lived with that as my normal. And when I came to realize this truth, that you can literally change your experience of yourself, how you feel, and your life, and what you create and what you can call in. When I realized we actually have charge over that, and it's founded in the principles of self-love, that was so game-changing to me. I became completely evangelical about sharing the message. So I started doing lots of trainings. I became a master coach, and 10, 12 years on now, I've written my book, and my coaching has evolved over time. And my coaching has evolved from, in the early days, very basically being a self-love coach, which is foundational to all the work I do now. And it's absolutely what I'm going to be sharing and teaching today. And then, you know, I continued my journey, and my business evolves as I evolve. And I believe that we as spiritual beings here having a human experience, we're always evolving and changing. And I absolutely love that I have a business now that can evolve and grow and change with me as I do. And I continue to teach what I've learned, if that makes sense. So the slide here, it says 5 years ago, my wild woman journey led me to teaching how to feel empowered by harnessing your feminine energy. It's a huge body of work that I do now with women. We work with masculine, feminine energy dynamics. It's a whole other training, but it's very, very exciting and completely life-changing. And then, like I was alluding to earlier, 3 years ago, I called in my soulmate, and yeah, I have a pretty happy life. But, you know, it didn't always used to be that way. And I don't know, hold on, I need to just change my slide view here a little bit. I can't see my own slides. How do I do that? Anyway, you know, give me 1 second, because I can't actually see my own slides. I'm going to do that. 1 moment. There we go. Now I can see them. All right. So I wonder if you can relate to this statement. I don't know who I am, so how can I love myself? And that was absolutely my experience. So when I mentioned sort of about 12 years ago, I had my rock bottom moment. That was a time in my life where I didn't know myself. And it's such a common story with women I meet and women I'm working with and coaching with. This feeling of not knowing yourself, the internal disconnect that brings. Like, often when we are experiencing anxiety, and I used to experience like proper on the floor anxiety, like really, like I couldn't even keep my breathing up, and my heartbeat was just racing. I'd be literally on the floor. That was because I wasn't connected to the truth of me. I was very predominantly operating in my head. And I was moving through life in the way I thought I should, based on my conditioning and my programming and what society says. But I wasn't aligned with the truth of me. I wasn't tapped into my values. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know my worth. And I was kind of functioning in some level of survival mode, but I definitely, absolutely was not thriving. And so, you know, my journey began when I, just in a super quick nutshell, my story, I left my son's father, and my son was 2. And I did that classic rebound thing, very quickly went into another relationship, which was frying pan into fire. So I went from being in a relationship with a child 3 months off from getting married, and then found myself in a rebound relationship, which was deeply unhealthy. And one day, on the back of yet another argument, and this time the relationship was over, I found myself in the middle of the day in my bedroom. My son was at nursery, drew the blinds, took Valium, and really kind of, I wasn't suicidal, and I was heading fairly swiftly in that direction. My anxiety was at an all-time peak. My depression was at an all-time low. I didn't have a job at this point. I put myself in a very unusual position for me, because I'd always worked, I'd always been very independent. I'd never relied on anybody for anything, but I put myself in a situation where I wasn't working. I didn't have any money in the bank. I didn't have a car. I suddenly had broken up with the boyfriend, had to find somewhere to live, didn't know where I was going to go, and was kind of, you know, freaking out. And it was in that moment I had this huge realization, you know, amidst crying and snot and whatnot. I had this huge realization that I had become my mother, and I had been spending my whole life avoiding, like really trying my darndest not to become like my mum. And I say that with love, because she was a beautiful woman and she was a fantastic mother. And she took her own life when I was 22. So she overdosed at 22, and the circumstances of that were identical to what I was playing out in that bedroom that day. So she overdosed in her bedroom in the middle of the afternoon. She'd just broken up with her boyfriend, and she had to find somewhere new to live, and she was in survival mode. So when I realized I was repeating her behavior, despite trying my darndest for all those years not to, I realized something had to change, and I didn't have a clue what the how of that was. I didn't know how to change. I just knew that I'd learned to do life one way, and it was time to learn to do life another way. And slowly, step by step, I was shown a way to really start creating a life of thriving. And it began with self-love. So really what happened for me was I was modeled through my mum, God bless her. Through my mum, it was modeled to me what life looks like when you don't love yourself. And I was living, breathing proof of that. Like I felt how it feels to move through life when you don't love yourself. So essentially, although I didn't have this language to it, when I knew I had to learn a different way of doing life, it was foundational in self-love. So what is self-love? Self-love, like I said earlier, is not a tick box or a destination. It's a daily practice and a way of doing life that invites you to compassionately connect with all parts of yourself. So here I've got mind, body, emotion, spirit. I believe we are 4 parts. We've essentially got 4 selves. We've got our mental, intellectual self, which is actually the home of our masculine energy. We've got our physical self, our body, which happens to be the home of our feminine energy. We've got our emotional self, which is, when it comes to the therapeutic coaching I do, that's essentially the inner child work I'm doing with women. And then, of course, we have our spiritual self, because like I said earlier, we are spiritual beings here having a human experience. When I realized that we have these parts to ourselves and we can relate to these different parts of ourselves, it was totally game changing for me. I learned how to relate to all these different parts when all I knew how to do was relate to my brain. All I knew was to listen to the thoughts that were in my head, which were predominantly self-sabotaging. I had a freaking nasty inner critic. She was very mean, and I listened to what she said most of the time. And I didn't know how to relate to my body. I didn't know how to relate to my emotions. I didn't know how to relate to my spiritual self. And it was through creating a relationship with these parts of me from a self-loving, compassionate, kind perspective that everything started to change. And that's what I really want for you guys too. This is what I'm really passionate about. A lot of people say, you might have heard this, you might think this yourself, that self-love is indulgent, egotistical, and selfish. It's not. The people you love most, the projects that you're most passionate about, what you care about in the world, it will all get better of you when you can drop the guilt and give yourself permission to love yourself enough to start to put yourself first. Yeah, it is game changing. And without even talking too much more about it, I just invite you at the beginning of this training, if you've got any like chat going on telling you that self-love is indulgence or egotistical, I just invite you to drop that now. I mean, I get it. I understand it. Growing up in Australia, it was like the worst insult you could throw at somebody in the playground. You know, you love yourself so much. You might you might have heard that too. Yeah, but no one is going to get the best of you if you don't start loving yourself, and you are doing them, those people that you really love, you're doing them a disservice not to take care of yourself. So self-love invites you to treat yourself as you would a small child and talk to yourself as you would a best friend. Yeah, like this is where it really does become a daily practice, practicing speaking to yourself and relating with yourself in a way that you perhaps have never done before. When you consider that the people in your world that you really love, I bet you give them lots of time, lots of attention, lots of compassion, maybe even money. You speak to them kindly. Like the way you treat them is how you have to start treating yourself. You have to start giving yourself the time, the compassion, investing in yourself. Yeah. And when you think about it, like, I mean, my son now is 14. I can't believe it. He just turned 14. But I remember, and if any parents here, you don't even need to have a parent to relate to this analogy. You watching a child, a little baby learning to walk. When that baby is learning to walk, you would never, when it falls over, you would never say, oh my God, you're such an idiot. I can't believe you can't do it. Look, everyone else can do it. You're falling behind. You're absolutely not good enough. You may as well give up now. You're hopeless. We would never, right? We would never speak to our child or any child like that. But that's how we speak to ourselves. And I still, even though, you know, I am kind of known as self-love expert, I still have post-it notes here around my office reminding me to be kind to myself. When I launch into something new in my business, when I'm going to speak at an event, even today, I speak at events all the time. And before every event I speak at, I have to have a little conversation of compassion and kindness with myself, because there's still that little voice that wants to try and tell me that I'm not going to be good enough. I'm going to make a mistake. You know, the old perfectionist in me wants to kind of like give me a hard time. So I have to learn this new inner dialogue. So self-love is the access point for more self-compassion, self-care, self-understanding, and self-trust. And I have a feeling if you are here watching this presentation, it's because you have a desire to have more compassion and care and understanding and trust for yourself. And the way we develop these pieces is by relating to our mind, body, emotion, and spirit in a different way. So it's relating to our mind in a way where we're speaking to ourselves more kindly and with compassion, where we are developing a level of self-care with our physical body and not mistreating it anymore, where we start to relate with our emotions in a way that we actually, first of all, we're going to talk about this in the training shortly, start to actually acknowledge how we feel rather than ignoring it, pushing under the carpet, numbing it out. Start to actually acknowledge how you feel and give yourself permission to release those feelings. So having understanding of your emotional range is really important, especially as a woman. And then self-trust, that comes from having that spiritual connection with your own soul, and then ultimately with what I would call source energy. I interchange that language with life, God, the universe, but yeah, source essentially. Okay, so little exercise. So if you're watching the replay, you might just want to pause and do this. But if you've got a pen and paper, we won't hang here for too long because I know I've only got an hour. But I want you to just take this moment to check in with all parts of you and just top line it. So check in with your mind. And just make a quick note now, because we're actually going to use this later on in the presentation. So what you write now, even if it's just one quick note, we'll use it later in the presentation. So just notice, how do you talk to yourself? What does your inner critic often tell you? Could you write 3 things? Is it I'm not enough? I'm never going to make that happen. I'll be single forever. They're better than me. I don't make enough money. Like, what is it? What's the nasty stuff you tell yourself? Write at least 3 things. And then I want you to check in with your physical self. And you know the answers to these straight up. Like, you don't need to do a lot of digging to answer these. What do you tell yourself when you look in the mirror? You know what it is. And then when it comes to your emotions, your feelings, how often do you actually stop and acknowledge how you feel? Do you actually even know what you feel? Do you have a language for it? I mean, that's a piece, actually, a lot of women. It's something I'm personally still learning. I've got pretty good at it, and I'm still learning to find language often for how I feel, because often it's not an easy thing to put into words. There's something about me being able to name how I feel and access that and then allow myself to release it that's very, very powerful. So do you know how you feel on a daily basis? Do you even ask yourself? Do you allow yourself to acknowledge the tougher feelings? Yeah. And do you allow yourself to release them in a healthy way? So a lot of us allow emotion to build up and then we kind of explode and wonder why we're upsetting the people we love most. Do you know a healthy way of expressing your emotions? And then your spiritual connection. How often do you feel a sense of peace and inner connection? And how often do you feel safe and held by life? I mean, honestly, my spiritual awakening and my spiritual path the last 12 years has been really, truly game-changing, because I never fully felt safe in the world. And without that safety, I didn't have a self-trust And I didn't have this sense that there was something greater than me at play, energetically taking care of me and guiding me. Yeah. Just make your little notes about that. I'm going to change the slide. Okie dokie. So I speak a lot about this idea of living transformationally. And this is what I mean. This is these 7 of self-love. We move through these on a daily basis, sometimes on an hourly basis, but we are constantly, consciously choosing to live transformationally. When it comes to self-love, we're consciously choosing to move through these 7 pillars. Yeah, so this is what I'm going to be speaking to for the rest of the presentation. Self-love invites you to live transformationally, which directly increases your self-compassion, self-care, self-understanding, and self-trust. So at the beginning of the presentation, I think I said how fierce I am about finding practical ways to implement self-love. So it's not this kind of, ethereal kind of notion. It's a practical daily practice. And here's pillar number 1. Awareness. You've already just done a little exercise in awareness where you've checked in with your mind, body, emotions, and spirit and noticed where you're at with each of those areas of you. Awareness is the first step towards change. Nothing in your life can change without bringing awareness to it first. Okay, sounds basic, but most of us, and this was me in the early days, we lack the courage to really look at what we need to look at. So awareness invites you, it's about to loving yourself enough to get real. Hold on. Loving yourself enough to get real requires immense bravery, but you will never look back. Yeah. So most of us don't want to look at what's painful. We don't want to really acknowledge the conversation that we need to have. We don't want to make the decision to change the job. We don't want to begin that conversation about perhaps having to leave that relationship. We don't, we avoid making the phone call to book the hospital or the doctor's appointment. Yeah, so we don't even allow ourselves to really acknowledge and go into the awareness of what needs to change because we're shit scared of what might have to happen next. And it's understandable. I mean, I remember when I first started my journey of really beginning to get to know myself, I remember I was given an exercise where I had to explore the relationship I was in. And I went back and forward to this exercise and I couldn't do it and I didn't want to do it because there was awareness deep inside me that I wasn't willing to look at, that this relationship was unhealthy. It was the relationship with the father of my child. And I didn't want to be in awareness around that because I knew that the second I was honest with myself and hooked into the awareness of what was really going on in my life, so much had to change. And I had a 2-year-old and I didn't know how to do life with a job and a 2-year-old. I didn't want to look at it. So it requires immense bravery. But, the reason I was doing that exercise was because I was dissatisfied. It says here, dissatisfaction is a gift inviting you to live more authentically. I have come to know that while feeling dissatisfied is super uncomfortable at times, it is a gift. And I was super uncomfortable at having to look at my relationship and bring up into my awareness what was really going on right here, right now, being really honest with myself. But until I did, my life couldn't move towards being on track and aligned with the truth of who I was. So yeah, there was some uncomfortable conversations to be had. There was many months, years actually, of discomfort that came as a result of making that decision. And yet from the moment I made that decision, despite the discomfort, it was the right thing because I was living true to me. I was speaking my truth and I was aligning with my soul and my purpose. And I've never, ever looked back. And we don't look back, So little exercise for you. I invite you into a little exercise of awareness where I want you to rate on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is like not at all and 10 is loads. How loving are your thoughts? So 1, not loving at all. 10, I completely, utterly, deeply love and accept myself. So just quick check-in, quick awareness. How loving your thoughts? What's your emotional mastery like? How compassionately do you relate to your emotions? How kind are you to your body? How confident are you in your body? And how much do you trust yourself? And perhaps even how much do you have faith and trust in life? Just on a scale of 1 to 10, just those questions require huge bravery. Yeah, because we're getting into awareness. And awareness can be very uncomfortable. Okay, so we're moving into the second pillar of self-love. Feeling is your route to healing. Love yourself enough to honor and express all of your emotions, no matter how scary or impossible it may seem. The truth is, you will survive it. So this is kind of tying into the awareness piece. You know, when we choose not to live completely, brutally, honestly with ourselves and not in awareness, what we're probably doing is pushing down how we feel, numbing out, living half a life because we don't want to face what's going on for us. We don't want to feel what's going on for us. We feel our thinking, and often our thoughts are a form of self-harm. So here's the thing with feeling. Feeling is your route to healing. And mostly we don't want to do it because, well, it hurts, doesn't it? So we've developed very sophisticated coping mechanisms and avoidance strategies to not have to feel our thinking. For example, Netflix. I mean, for me, I know I'm in avoidance of feeling what I need to feel when I put on a box set and pour a glass of wine. Total avoidance, numbing out, feels really good, don't have to deal with anything. Internet shopping, overworking, over exercising, putting all of your attention and energy into somebody else or into a relationship so you don't have to focus on what's going on for you. Drinking tea and coffee, taking painkillers, smoking, like, you know your thing. Yeah, we've all got our thing that we do to kind of numb out and not have to feel. But the problem is when we don't acknowledge how we feel, it becomes a toxic energy in our body. That toxicity actually makes us sick. And the truth is, while we think we're being super clever at sidestepping our emotions and not having to go there and feel the grief or feel the sadness, feel the pain, what we're doing when we're repressing those emotions is we're actually also at the same time repressing our joy and our happiness, because you can't selectively switch off emotions and feelings. If you're pushing down one, you're pushing down them all. That's why you might have heard it said that depression is long-term repression. So when I felt depressed, it was because I had been turning away from how I felt for far too long. And I was numbing out with everything from relationship drama to, like I said, television, Netflix, wine. In my 20s, when I was dealing with my mum's suicide and grief, it was drugs, dance parties, boyfriends I had, and work. Actually, my career was a fantastic, like, it looked like I had all things, it was all going on, and I had a fantastic, successful career. But the truth was, my career and all of these external pieces, the parties, the travel, the work, the boyfriends, these external pieces were giving me my sense of significance. They were giving me a sense of self-worth and self-value. Nothing wrong with that, where, you know, our basic human needs are we require feeling significant and worthy and so on, but it's about how can we get that from the inside and not from external sources. When it's only coming from external sources, it just well, we're just on this like constant treadmill of searching, trying to get these feelings of approval and value and self-worth. But back in those days, I used to use this external stuff as a distraction, which looked kind of good. You know, I looked high achieving, I looked high functioning, I was, you know, doing well, I was doing well in life. But I was really using all of it to not have to feel what I was feeling, to not feel the grief of my mum's suicide, to not feel the pain of yet another relationship failing, the drama inside of my relationships, because I didn't know how to relate to myself in a healthy way. So how could I expect to have relationships that were healthy? Which is why I really celebrate the marriage I have now. I'm very proud of that, because it's testament to the work that I've done. It's testament to how self-love can change your life. So getting comfortable with this idea that it's okay to acknowledge, in fact, it's important to acknowledge how you feel and to find really healthy ways to release and express those feelings, because as you acknowledge them and release and express them, your body is becoming more vibrant and more healthy, because you're not holding all that toxic energy inside you. You're able to authentically access peace and joy and happiness because you're not repressing any of the more difficult emotions, and you're more emotionally masterful, so you're less likely to kind of like go off the boiler. So quick exercise for you, and again, it's a quick acknowledgement exercise. How do you feel today? What do you know you need? And how could you safely allow yourself to access and release those feelings? This is actually a very beautiful daily self-love practice. If you were to wake up every morning and ask yourself, how do I feel? What do I need? And take action on the what do I need, it's totally game changing, because when we actually take action on what we know we need, we're building self-trust. We're starting to become our own best friend. Like, you have your own back. Every single time you say, I need this, I'm going to do that for myself, and then don't, you're destroying your self-trust. You're not there for you. And for me, that's quite soul destroying. We want to be there for ourselves, right? First and foremost. And when we can be there for ourselves, when we can trust ourselves, when we can have that solid relationship with ourselves, we become the vibrational match for that energetically. So we start to attract in people that have our back, circumstances, opportunities, experiences that have us feel safe, taken care of, that feel trustworthy. Okay, so the third pillar of self-love is forgiveness. So forgiveness creates peace, health, and freedom. So when I say peace, I mean mental and emotional peace, health, physical health, and spiritual freedom. So remember, we're always working with these four parts of ourselves. The choice to release wrongdoing, hurt, and injustice from self or others is the function of the heart and capacity of the soul. So you don't need to know how to forgive. It's an experience you can choose to receive. And to be really clear, like, and certainly in my experience, and I see it in my clients, you know, forgiveness isn't something we can force or make happen. We have to really be ready to forgive, but we have to choose it as part of living consciously and part of living transformationally. We can't sidestep it and avoid it. It's a very important part of the healing process. And we'll do it when we're ready. And it is the third step. So we have to start with awareness. And then the awareness brings us into a space of emotional release. So for example, if someone's made you really freaking angry, and you're so resentful, you have to start with awareness, and you might want to write about how you've been really disappointed and really let down, and it's just not fair, and you allow your victim voice to come through in your journaling, and you're in full acknowledgement of how somebody really upset you and really disappointed and let you down. And then you, through that acknowledgement, you move into a place of feeling it and really allowing yourself to feel that, you know, that just wasn't fair. and I don't deserve to be treated like that, and feel it, allow the anger through in a healthy way. It's kind of another workshop on how to release anger and difficult emotions healthily. But you know, find ways, do a boxing class, get a baseball bat at home and smash up a pillow, write an angry letter, scream in the car as you're driving down a country lane, scream underwater, whatever. But you know, find your ways to release the anger, release the tears. And only then, once you've moved through acknowledgement, emotional expression, can you move into a place of forgiveness. Because you have to acknowledge and feel for yourself first, all the feelings. You know, forgiveness doesn't mean we allow something to happen again. Forgiveness doesn't mean that what happened to you was okay. Forgiveness doesn't mean that if you discovered that somebody wasn't trustworthy, that you're going to just suddenly trust them again. It just means you're releasing the experience, that you're not held down by that heavy toxic energy anymore, if that makes sense. So using this quote, Buddha said that to not forgive is like picking up a hot coal with the intention of throwing it at the person we are angry with. But as we hold that coal, the person that gets burned most is us. Yeah. So often we hold on to our anger and our resentment, and we don't want to forgive because, you know, we want to be right. We get to be right when we don't forgive, and we want to hold on to that feeling of being right. We get to feel significant. But we don't get to release the pain. We don't get to step into freedom. So here's a little exercise for you. And by the way, I mean, if you want to grab a copy of my book, The Self-Love Affair, A Woman's Guide to a Daring and Mighty Life, every piece that we're going into here, it goes into in way more detail with more exercises and meditation albums, the whole lot. So, and there is a whole section in here on forgiveness, and it will guide you through a forgiveness process. It's beautiful forgiveness meditation. So, you know, there's more information if you want to take this a little more deeply, and you want to take your self-love journey, you know, deeper than you can do in a 1-hour webinar. But today, just check in with yourself. In fact, if we could just all, and I can't see you right now, so I'm going to trust you're going to follow me in this, but I invite you to just maybe just sit and close your eyes for a minute. And just take a breath. And just feel into what you know you've been holding on to. And when you're ready, you're going to set the intention to forgive it. And it might not be today, but I just want you to step into the awareness of what is it in your life that you know needs forgiving? Who in your life do you know needs forgiving? It could be somebody else, it could be you. But just think of someone or something that has hurt you. And just feel into that memory or that experience. Just tap into that awareness and allow yourself to feel it in your body. And just notice where in your body you're feeling it. Notice how you're experiencing that feeling. So maybe it's a heaviness or a weight of some description. Maybe it's like a burning in your chest, maybe a tightness in your head. Like just notice how it feels when you tap into this pain. And just be aware the effects of that on your physical health. Like when you've got feelings like this going on, this is going to be impacting you physically. And just notice if there's a reason. There might not be, but just notice, is there a reason why you've been holding on to this anger or this resentment? Is there a reason why you haven't been able to forgive? Do you need to be right? Do you need that sense of significance? And then I invite you to set the intention to let it go. Just set the intention. And a beautiful prayer that can go alongside that is something like, and you're going to use this in a way that works for you, even though I don't think I can forgive, or even though I'm not ready to forgive, I'm willing to be shown how. It's a beautiful and super intentional prayer. Even though I don't know how, even though I don't think I can, I'm willing to be shown. And when you're ready, just open your eyes, and if you feel like making a little note on the back of that, then please do. And I really honor you for taking the time to actually tap into that as well, because I know how painful that can be. And I remember years ago, I did something called the Hoffman process. So we're talking like 12 years ago. And you might have heard of the Hoffman process, but there was a day as part of that process. It's a 7-day, at the time, it was like a 7-day retreat, nothing retreat about it. It was like a deep dive personal development journey. And I remember the day when I was invited to have compassion and to forgive my dad. I now have a fantastic relationship with my dad because of this work. Back then, I didn't. And the idea of having compassion for my father and forgiving him was ridiculous. I was like point blank, that is not possible. I cannot experience that. But what I came to realize is forgiveness, as I said earlier, it is a function of the heart and soul. It's not something we can figure out from our head. It's not even something we do from our head. It's such an experiential piece. And when I was able to tap into compassion and forgiveness with him, not only did it really change my life, because I wasn't carrying that weight around anymore. I wasn't carrying the victimhood of it around anymore. Slowly, it also changed my relationship with him, which is really beautiful as he's, getting so much older now. Okie dokie. So step 4, the 4th pillar of self-love is living intentionally. So living intentionally means you are living in choice. This is where we're taking our power back. Yeah. So loving yourself shifts your perspective to a lens of kindness. You're invited to remember that life loves you too. Life is happening for you, not to you. And you can co-create with that energy through living consciously and setting intentions. So yeah, I love this. So what I love about this, let me look at my notes. Why do I love this? Hold on, am I in the right place here? Yeah, okay, this is why I love this. Because I used to live life totally in victim. I genuinely used to think life was happening to me. I thought I was so unlucky in life. I mean, I totally normalized the anxiety I lived with. And I used to wonder how other people move through the day without anxiety, without permanent worry. I mean, I knew the state of worry since I was a very small girl. I didn't know anything else. I just kind of thought I was unlucky. I was a worried child. I was a worried person, and other people weren't. So I kind of got unlucky. When my parents divorced, I kind of thought, oh, okay, so we're going to be one of those families. We're not the lucky family. And I was a victim to that. When my mum committed suicide, it was the same messaging. You're unlucky, Katie. Life is happening to you. Life is kind of against you. The idea of co-creating with life, the idea that there was this source energy, this power that was actually all for me, that was so loving and totally had my back, was the most ridiculous concept. But when I moved into this work, when I started with this foundational work and chose and set the intention to love myself, because that became my focus and my intention, I started to normalize that I would be supported, that life would have my back, that other people would have my back. I stopped expecting to get hurt. I stopped expecting to get and be disappointed. I stopped expecting to be let down. I stopped expecting to have bad luck. I stopped expecting like a drama around the corner. Like it just, everything changed for me. That's definitely what I want for you too. So here's a little exercise. How do I love myself when I don't even like myself? The answer is that's a question I get asked all the time, by the way. So the answer is to set the intention and allow life to guide you in a way that is just perfect for you. So you might remember when I was sharing a bit of my story earlier, when I had that rock bottom experience in the bedroom, taking the Valium, lines drawn, when I realized that I had to find a different way of doing life and I didn't know where to begin, what I know now in retrospect, when I look back at that woman in that room, I was setting an intention, and it was an intention fueled by a very powerful emotion. I was deeply emotional that day, but the emotion came through with this drive that was like, oh my God, I have to change my life. I have to start feeling better. I have to find a way. I intended to find a way. And then what happens is life begins to support you. And I didn't know where to begin, but there was lines in a song that spoke to me. And then it was a meditation. And then someone recommended a therapist, and someone recommended a coach. And then I found myself doing the Hoffman process. And there was a book, and there was that training, and then So you being here on this call, maybe, I wouldn't be surprised, it's part of life supporting you and guiding you and taking you where you need to go, because there's not one way to love yourself. There's not one way to heal what you need healing. There's not one way to overcome and transform what you are ready to overcome and transform, but life will show you. Life will guide you to the right coach, will guide you to the right online course, the right book, whatever it is. We have to set the intention. So you might remember right at the beginning, and I put in that little gray box there, you answered those awareness questions around how do you talk to yourself? What do you say to yourself when you look in the mirror? Do you remember those questions earlier? So just take a look back at those answers and just choose one thing out of that list of 4, one thing that you want to change. So all you're going to do right now is set an intention. You're not going to actually do anything with it this moment. You're just going to set the intention. You know what? I'm fed up with that belief where I tell myself I'm not good enough. Yeah, I'm done with that. So that's the awareness piece. Then you're going to choose an emotional expression piece. So you're going to notice, well, how has that had me feel? For how long have I avoided feeling that, or not spoken my truth because of that, or felt sick because I've been repressing the emotions around that? And how could I really allow myself to healthily express and release my feelings around that? And then how could I forgive myself? Again, you don't need to know how. You're just setting the intention. I'm willing to be shown how to forgive myself. I don't know how to release the emotion of it right now. I don't even know how to connect to the emotion of it right now, but I'm setting the intention to be willing to be shown how. Everything begins with choice. Everything begins with intention. And then set the intention to choose to replace what it is you want to change with something else. So if it's I'm not good enough, maybe you're going to create the affirmation, I'm so much more than enough. And maybe you're going to write that affirmation on Post-it notes and stick it around the house and make it an alarm on your phone. But you're just setting the intention. I'm done with that. I'm willing to be shown how to release the emotions around it. I'm willing to be shown how to forgive it. And I'm willing to move into a more self-loving, compassionate relationship with myself, with new beliefs, with new healthy behaviors. Yeah, so today, just set yourself a powerful intention. Okay, the 5th pillar of self-love is self-acknowledgement. Yeah, self-acknowledgement builds self-worth, self-esteem, and self-value. Self-love invites you to take time to focus on the qualities you have and to break the habit of beating yourself up, because where we put our attention expands. So self-acknowledgement is very similar to gratitude, and gratitude happens to be the next pillar. The difference between self-acknowledgement and gratitude is self-acknowledgement is more about having gratitude and an acknowledgement for who you are, what you value about yourself, what you are proud of yourself for. It's like an inner experience where you really have your own back and you're able to celebrate yourself. Whereas gratitude, in my language and the way I approach this, is more external. And we'll get to that in just a minute. So this is about looking within for your qualities that you're grateful for, that you're proud of yourself for, that you value about yourself. So we get what we focus on. So when we spend time giving attention to our wealth of inner resources, we feel more and more fulfilled. Day by day, we build more and more self-esteem. So a really powerful daily journaling question, or 2 questions to ask yourself, is what am I proud of myself for, and what do I value about myself? And write at least 3 things. So maybe you could do that now. I just give you a second. Could you write 3 things that you're proud of yourself for? And could you write 3 things that you value about yourself? Yeah. So you might be proud of yourself. I'll give you some examples for speaking your truth, for brushing your teeth before bed last night, even though you'd had a couple glasses of wine, for doing a meditation today, maybe for trying something new, maybe a new sport, maybe you tried a new dating site. What are you proud of yourself for? Maybe you've really put yourself outside your comfort zone in some way. Maybe you're proud of yourself for showing up here on this training, giving yourself an hour today to focus purely on you. Maybe you're proud of the mum that you are. Maybe you're proud of the business owner that you are, or the colleague that you are. Yeah. And then 3 things you value about yourself. So maybe you value your humor, your intellect, your persistence, maybe your honesty. Maybe you value how you wear your heart on your sleeve. Maybe you value how trustworthy you are, what a good friend you are. Maybe how brave you are, courageous, kind. Yeah. If you were to write 3 things every single day that you were proud of yourself for, and 3 things that you value about yourself, I would put money on the fact that it will start to change how you feel about yourself, and it will give you more confidence. And through taking this practical action, like I can't stress enough the importance of action. The action, like doing what you say you're going to do, doing something like this every day, something so basic as this every day, will begin to build self-trust. Okay, the 6th pillar of self-love is gratitude. Gratitude builds a sense of security in the world. An attitude of gratitude means you will feel good more often. And we all just want to be happy, right? And this is the route to happiness. So we get what we focus on. Gratitude says, I have this and this and this and this and this, because look, we live in first world countries, right? We're bloody lucky. We have a lot to be grateful for. So gratitude says, I have all these things and I'm taken care of and I'm loved and I'm safe. And that feels good. So the more we're grateful, the better we feel. So I'm not going to ask you to write 10 things right now that you're grateful for, but you might just better quickly jot down a couple. And for some of you, this will be the most normal practice and feel very easy. Maybe it's something you've been doing for a while already. I remember when I first started my gratitude practice, I found it so hard, because back in those early days when I was living so in victim mode and feeling so much like life was dumping on me all the time, I didn't feel like I had anything to be grateful for. Especially when, you know, my relationship with my son's father was ending, and, you know, like it was just horrible. And I couldn't tap into gratitude. So I really had to practice it. And I had to start really super basic. I'm grateful for the electricity in my home. I'm grateful that I have a fridge to keep my food cold. I'm grateful that I have a roof over my head. I am grateful for my son. But in the very beginning, I couldn't even feel grateful for that, because it all felt like a big burden, which is a really sad place to be. Now I could go on and on about gratitude. So maybe you could write just at least a couple of things. And you might even include in your gratitudes, you know, start to notice how life really is supporting you. Notice when you get that rock star car park. Notice how when, you know, oh, the traffic lights were green for me all the way to yoga class. It's really important to start just acknowledging how life is supporting you. Maybe this training today, you could be grateful for that, because maybe it just dropped into your inbox at the perfect time, and there's like one nugget of information out of this whole hour that will be game changing for you. Okay, so the final pillar of self-love, I'm just going to check my time. Oh yeah, we're doing quite well, good. Final pillar of self-love is asking. Asking is the first step to receiving. So it's about loving yourself enough to ask for what you need, and that builds self-worth. Asking is a super vulnerable act, and in every ask, you're telling yourself that you are worthy of help, support, guidance, abundance, and love. You are receiving your value and your worth more deeply. I bet that when someone else asks you a favor or asks you to do something, you do it. And oftentimes you probably feel quite good about it. You might have a bit of martyr stuff going on, a bit of victim occasionally, where you're like, when's anyone going to do anything good for me? Or anything nice for me. But you know that if someone asked you for your help, if they needed you, you would be there for them. So self-love invites you to be there for you and allow someone else to support you, allow someone else to help you. It's a very vulnerable act, isn't it? And essentially, it is saying, I value myself enough, I'm worth it. It's a very demonstrable action. Again, action is required when it comes to self-love. We can't just think about these things, these like nice, fluffy concepts. They're not nice, fluffy concepts. It's life-changing practices. So when you actually practice asking for help, asking for what you need, you are practicing telling yourself, I'm worth it. And that we can build on that day by day. By your very nature as a spiritual being, you are a co-creator. You are not designed to do life alone. Life is a collaboration. It's a universal law. So when I speak to asking, while I also, and I'm going to invite you to practice asking. Oh, hold on, let me look at this exercise. Yeah, I mean, while I want you to practice asking, like actual asking people to do things for you and help you with things, I also want you to practice just tapping into the desires of your heart and soul. Maybe you do that through your journal. And maybe you tap into something that you really, really want. So top mind for me at the moment, because my Meet Your Soulmate challenge starts next week. It's all about calling in soulmate love. Maybe you're writing in your journal, I really desire to call in the love of my life. And in your journal, you ask God, life, the universe for help. Even though I don't know where he is, even though I don't know how to find him, even though I don't know what dating app to go on, I'm willing to be shown. That's an ask. You're acknowledging your truth, and you're asking something greater than you for support. That is just as important as asking your best friend for help, or asking your kids to wash up for you so you don't have to do it. Yeah. So I want you to go away and practice asking for help. Ask life, the universe, God, to show you how to receive what it is that you most deeply desire. Ask a friend to help you with something. Ask a shop attendant for help with your bags. Like, we're so good, aren't we? Like, if someone says to me, can I pack your bags for you? My knee-jerk reaction is usually to say, no, I'm good, thanks. Because of course I don't need them to. I can pack my own bags. When my husband says, shall I go and put petrol in the car for you? I'm like, I could put petrol in my own car. I have to actually just notice that my knee jerk is to say no and not receive support, and to instead say thank you, knowing that they'll feel good as well. They'll feel received because I've said thank you and allowed them to help me. So it's a total win-win. It's something we have to practice. Now, just before we wrap up today, because I know we're on the hour, and I don't know if you've got any questions in the chat, but if you do have any questions, chuck them in and we'll run over a little bit and I'll answer Q&A. But I want to just give you, this is the final slide. I want to give you this very quick journaling guideline, because so many women ask me how to journal. I don't know where to start. I know it's a really great way to get to know myself. I know it's a really great way to process emotions. I know it's a really great way to manifest and tap into my desires, but like, where do I start? So this is where you could start. And it's a framework, and you could use some or all of it. You know, some days you might have quite a nice chunk of time and you might want to work through this whole process. Some days you might just write 3 things you're grateful for, or 3 things you're proud of yourself for, right? Essentially, this full process is moving you from the chaos and noise in your head, which is usually what's going on up here, right? into your heart, which is where we feel that connection with ourselves, where we feel peace. From that place, we can forgive. Can't forgive when we're in the chaos up here, because we just want to be right when we're up here. So we go from our head to our heart, and then we're connecting with our spiritual truth. And really, what I really would want for you, and this is my daily practice and my daily intention, is to be guided by my spiritual truth. Not from the noise up here, not from what other people think I should be doing. I'm guided authentically by the truth of who I am, my spiritual self. So we start with a brain dump. A brain dump looks like basically getting a journal or a piece of paper, and you could just dump out to-do lists. It could be an angry letter. It could be, whatever you need to get off your chest. It could be what you've been worrying about. Whatever you notice is going on and in your head and seems to be going around and around and around and around in an exhausting, painful loop, get it out onto paper. Imagine it like a train, kids' train sets, and you sort of put the tracks together. And if you did a loop, a circular train track, it's like picking up one of the tracks and turning it out. So the noise and the chat in your head can go around and out, and you need the release. While this stuff is going on in your head, it's making you sick, it's exhausting you, it's making you feel crazy, you can't make decisions, and you totally, absolutely cannot come from the truth of your heart and soul. So dump it all out first and foremost. And notice that as you're doing the brain dump, you're moving through this transformational process we've just been talking about. So you're moving through awareness, you're connecting and you're being aware of what's going on for you, what you're thinking about. You're moving into emotional expression. Often your emotions will come up. You'll notice what you're angry about. You might write the angry letter. You probably won't send it. You'll probably burn it instead safely. But it's a way of emotionally expressing and releasing it. You might start to write a forgiveness letter. You might be able to tap into that. And you'll be moving into a space of being able to forgive, because you're moving out of your head now into your heart. And when you're in that heart space, you can start to write what you're grateful for. So you write 3 things you're grateful for, 3 things you're proud of yourself for, 3 things you value about yourself. Yeah, as we do that kind of writing every day, game changing. And then you're moving in now to a connection with your soul. And it's at this place that you could start to just journal around the desires of your heart. What do you really want for your life? How do you really want to feel? Really give yourself permission to honor that. Your journal's a very safe space to really connect with you. And ask, begin to make the ask. Maybe set the intention to call in support, ask somebody for help. At least ask God, life, the universe to show you the way. Write the prayer. Even though I don't know how to create that, even though I don't know where my man is, I'm willing to be shown. I'm available to receive it. And then the 6th step of this journaling practice is just free writing. Just because once you've moved from head into heart into spirit, you're like this conduit, and you can literally just receive your information. You can receive your guidance. Your soul can actually begin to speak. You might write something really beautiful and creative. You might start finding yourself writing poetry. You'll come up with amazing ideas. And we can come up with ideas. We can feel our intuition. We can be guided by that when we're not in the chaos of our brain. Yeah, so I hope that's helpful. There's my book. It's on Amazon if you're interested. Like I said, the book is essentially, it's a workbook, and it's got a meditation album attached to it, and it will take you through practical processes that really put into practice all that we've talked about today. I mentioned that my Meet Your Soulmate 5-day challenge starts next week. We kick off on Monday. At the moment, I think we've got about 160 women signed up. Totally free. It's a game changer. So if you're single and you want to learn how to do the inner work to become the vibrational match for the guy or girl you're calling in, come do my challenge. That's the link. It's a really horrible link, isn't it? Maybe take a photo of it. If you follow me on Instagram, actually, you can just go into our bio and you'll find the link there. Our Instagram is at theschoolofself.love. Yeah, so at theschoolofself.love, and you'll find the links in there. Thank you so much. This is the next webinar coming soon. And let me have a quick jump into the chat. Hi, darlings. How are you all? Hello, hello. Hey, Carmel from Ireland. Sorry, I didn't see this earlier. Taryn, hello. Emotions, I wallow in my depression and anxiety and cloak myself in ambivalence. Yeah, that sounds really tough. And I really, really hope that what I shared with you today will help you to begin to release that. It takes courage and it takes bravery to really tap into how you feel and release it. Oh, crying. Good. Yes. Good crying. Good release. We got to feel to heal, right? Feel to heal. It feels horrible when we're in it. I've had times on my healing journey where I have cried and I genuinely thought I would die. It hurt so much. I have genuinely felt like I can't survive this. But we do survive it. We have to, it takes a lot of courage and bravery to move through it. And we don't always have to do it on our own. That's the key. You don't have to do it on your own. If it really does feel too painful, you reach out to a therapist or a coach or a friend for support. You don't do life on your own. Sharon, love this. I used to journal but have lapsed. We'll use this framework. Awesome. Great. Yeah, you're welcome, Taryn. You're welcome, Andrea. I'm so glad. Stay in my world, guys. Oh, thank you, Ellie, for posting the link. That's awesome. Such a horrible long link, isn't it? Andrea, my main sticking point is self-trust and not being able to trust others as well as myself. I hear you. It was my story. It was the reason why I was single parenting for 8 years. I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust men. Point blank, did not trust them. Thought I had to do everything on my own. And yeah, this what I've shared today is foundational, and there are many levels and layers to be built upon that. This is game-changing foundational work. And if you want to go deeper, let me know. I'll let you know how you can. We've got so much on offer for so many different types of women, depending on what it is that you're looking for. Instagram is at the School of Self.love. There you go. And there's my personal Instagram is at Daring and Mighty. There you go. You can follow me on both of those. Carmel, hello. Carmel says, great guide for journaling. You're welcome. I love the show me line. Yeah, totally. So now, Instagram. Yes, there you go. Oh, Ellie's put it in as well. There we go. Oh, did I? Oh, I did it. Okay, great. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you. All right, guys. So I hope that's been really helpful. Like I said, if you're single or if you have any single friends, get them to come and join the Meet Your Soulmate Challenge. We start next week, totally free. And yeah, we talk all things self-love, mental mastery, emotional mastery, how to activate your feminine power. It's super, super cool, and a very cool community. Yeah. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.